I still remember the exact moment my phone buzzed that morning. A message from my mum popped up, and even before I read it, there was that familiar knot in my stomach, the one that always appeared when family disappointments were about to land. I opened it slowly, trying to prepare myself, but nothing could have braced me for the words. "We're skipping your kid's birthday this year. Things are tight." I stared at the screen, my fingers hovering over the keyboard, my heart tightening with that strange mix of disbelief and hurt. On the surface, I typed, "No problem," the calmest words I could manage, but inside, a storm was raging. I thought about my child, so excited and counting down the days, and the unfairness of it all hit me. It wasn't just a party being skipped, it was a message. We didn't matter. I sat there, staring at the blank wall, feeling the sting of neglect, while my mind raced through every birthday my family had prioritized someone else. And in that silence, I realized this day, this one moment meant for joy, could easily become another lesson in disappointment unless I chose to take control. As I sat there with my phone still warm in my hand, memories began flooding back, each one sharper than the last. I remembered the countless birthdays, graduations, and holidays where I felt invisible, always the one left behind while someone else basked in attention. My cousin would get the newest phone or the fancy gift, and my accomplishments would barely be acknowledged, if at all. Even the smallest gestures, like a congratulatory text or a simple phone call, often went missing when it came to me. My parents had a way of making their favourites shine, of subtly letting me know my place in the hierarchy, and over the years, I had internalised it, feeling grateful for scraps of attention while longing for validation that never came. The sting of their favouritism wasn't just about material things, it was about being seen, being valued. I remembered the whispering cousins, the sly smirks when I spoke, the barely concealed sighs of annoyance if I dared to assert myself. That quiet, gnawing exclusion had taught me one thing very clearly. I was always the outsider, the afterthought. And yet, despite all that neglect, I had survived, grown, and learned to notice the patterns. Sitting there now, reading that text, it all came rushing back, the subtle humiliation, the overlooked achievements, the endless, "oh, they did well, but not as well as," moments. My heart ached not just for myself but for my child, who deserved so much more than what my family seemed willing to give. This wasn't just about one birthday. It was a pattern, a lifetime of being underestimated, dismissed, and replaced. And it stung more than any material slight ever could. I stared at the text again, letting the words sink in, but I refused to let my fingers betray me. On the surface I was calm, polite even. "No problem," I had typed, and it felt like a shield, a barrier between my family's careless dismissal and the fire building inside me. But beneath that quiet exterior, my mind was already spinning, weaving possibilities, mapping out the tiniest cracks in their assumptions. They thought I would shrug and let it slide, that I would accept being overlooked as I always had. They had no idea how wrong they were. I pictured the look on their faces if I flipped the script, if I quietly took control of the day and proved that their neglect didn't define us. Every slight, every favour they had hoarded for someone else became fuel for a plan, subtle, precise, and impossible for them to ignore. I began listing the ways I could make this birthday unforgettable, not just for my child, but in a way that would quietly announce my worth. It wasn't about revenge for revenge's sake. It was about reclaiming dignity, showing them that underestimation was a mistake they would never repeat. The calm in my words hid the storm of strategy and determination, and for the first time in a long while, I felt the thrill of control slipping back into my hands. I woke up early that morning with a quiet determination buzzing in my chest. This birthday would be different, not because I had family to celebrate with, but because I refused to let their absence define the day. I poured every ounce of my love into planning, decorating, and preparing surprises that my child would remember forever. Balloons, banners, a carefully curated cake with their favourite flavours. I even tracked down a small musician friend to play a few tunes over video call, making it feel like the world itself had come together just for them. As I hung streamers and arranged the presents, I caught myself thinking about how different things might have been if family had shown up. But instead of dwelling on the hurt, I used it as fuel, transforming disappointment into meticulous effort and creativity. "I can't believe you did all this for me," my child whispered, eyes wide with wonder, hugging me tight. "It's the best birthday ever," I smiled, trying to hide the lump in my throat. "You deserve every bit of it," I said, brushing a strand of hair from their face, my heart swelling with pride and love. Every laugh, every squeal of excitement became a small victory, a reminder that family absence didn't diminish our joy. The contrast was stark. While the ones who were supposed to celebrate us stayed home, we created a world of warmth, laughter, and love that they would never forget. And in that moment, I felt an empowering clarity. I wasn't powerless. I was strong, resourceful, and wholly devoted to the person who mattered most, and that truth carried a weight my family had never imagined. As the day went on, my phone kept buzzing, but not with genuine excitement or well wishes. Texts from relatives trickled in, half-hearted messages filled with empty apologies or awkward excuses. My aunt sent a picture of her own brunch with the caption, "Wish we could be there, maybe next year." And I felt the familiar twinge of being overlooked. My cousin posted a video of their own elaborate celebration, clearly showing off the gifts and attention I had longed to see for my child. Even a call from my mother ended abruptly, her tone clipped, almost impatient, as if acknowledging the day was a chore rather than a celebration. Each little comment, each subtle brush-off, stung more than any absence could alone. I noticed the pattern, the dismissive laughter emojis, the hope you're managing lines, the careful avoidance of any real acknowledgement, and yet I stayed calm on the surface, letting them think their indifference didn't matter. Inside, though, I began imagining the moment when all their arrogance and underestimation would collide with reality. Every snub, every condescending message was a thread in the tapestry I was quietly weaving, one that would show them exactly who they had underestimated. The tension mounted with each passing hour, and I could feel the invisible scales beginning to tip. By mid-afternoon, I could feel the weight of their indifference pressing against me, but instead of cracking, I allowed a quiet satisfaction to settle in. I had quietly prepared a few surprises that my family couldn't have predicted, little hints of resources and influence they assumed I lacked. While they were busy scrolling through social media and judging from afar, I orchestrated a small but meaningful gesture, a catered delivery of gourmet treats for my child's friends, something far beyond what they had expected, coupled with a beautifully arranged set of personalized gifts. When a few messages arrived from relatives commenting on the extravagance, their casual arrogance started to falter. "Wow, didn't realize you had access to this," one text read, followed by a string of shocked emojis. My calm smile grew wider. They had always assumed I was the powerless one, the quiet, polite child who never demanded attention or resources. But here I was, effortlessly turning their assumptions on their head, showing that independence and resourcefulness could create impact far greater than their superficial displays of generosity. Every subtle shock I saw in their responses felt like a small, private victory, a foreshadowing of the more public reckoning to come. I let them think the day was unfolding as they wished, all while quietly rewriting the narrative and setting the stage for a karmic reversal they would never see coming. Late that afternoon, as I was adjusting the final touches on the decorations, my phone buzzed again. It was a message from my old friend, someone who had seen me through countless family dramas over the years. "Hey, I heard what's happening today," they wrote. "I just want you to know you're doing the right thing. Don't let them steal this day from you or your kid." I felt a lump in my throat reading it. Their words carried the validation I had been craving all day, the reminder that my instincts and efforts were meaningful even if my family refused to acknowledge them. We chatted for a while, and they shared a few ideas on little ways to elevate the celebration, suggesting touches I hadn't even considered. Personalized notes for friends, a short surprise activity that would create lasting memories. Their encouragement lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying and reminded me that the value of this day wasn't dictated by family approval. For the first time, I allowed myself to fully relax into the joy of preparing, knowing someone else saw and supported the love and effort I was pouring in. Their presence, even virtual, gave me renewed confidence that the coming moments would be about celebration, not hurt. By the early evening, everything was in place and I could feel the quiet anticipation thrumming beneath my calm exterior. I had planned a small gathering for my child and a few close friends, but there was one detail my family could never anticipate. Among the invitations, I had included a few people my relatives respected socially, neighbours, colleagues, even a distant relative who happened to be influential in our community. They had no idea this simple birthday party would subtly showcase how resourceful, capable, and loved my child was, despite their absence. As I arranged the tables and double-checked the surprises, I imagined the moment they would see glimpses of what they had dismissed. Laughter, joy, careful planning, and a sense of community my family had never provided. Every detail was designed not to humiliate, but to reveal the truth. They had underestimated us, and that miscalculation would be undeniable. My heart raced with a quiet satisfaction, knowing that when they finally saw the culmination of this day, the consequences of their neglect would become impossible to ignore. The tension hung thick in the air, and I felt a rush of empowerment. This wasn't just a birthday. It was a lesson they wouldn't soon forget. By the time my family finally decided to make an appearance, the party was in full swing. My child's laughter filled the room, friends ran around with streamers trailing behind them, and the decorations shone brightly in the evening light. I greeted them with a calm smile, masking the satisfaction bubbling beneath the surface. They looked around, scanning the room, their expressions a mixture of curiosity, surprise, and that familiar arrogance that had always irked me. "Oh, this looks nice," my mother muttered, her voice slightly tighter than usual. I nodded politely, saying nothing, letting the scene speak for itself. As they moved through the gathering, I subtly guided their attention, introducing them to the neighbours and friends who were clearly impressed, letting them witness the love, organisation, and thoughtfulness they had ignored. Each glance of disbelief on their faces was a small thrill. They had assumed I would quietly accept their neglect. But here I was, composed, in control, and orchestrating the day to perfection. I could see them noticing the little details, the personalised notes, the carefully chosen gifts, the joy radiating from my child. And with each observation, I felt the tension rise. Would they recognise the error they had made, the years of favouritism and dismissiveness that had shaped our relationship? I let the suspense linger, allowing them to realise piece by piece that their assumptions about me and my child had been gravely mistaken, and that this day, calm on the surface yet carefully constructed beneath, was quietly exposing the consequences of their neglect. As the party reached its peak, I knew it was time. The room was filled with laughter, chatter, and the bright energy of children reveling in a celebration they deserved. I called for everyone's attention, not in a loud or aggressive way, but with a calm authority that immediately drew eyes toward me. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady, carrying over the hum of excitement. "Today is about celebrating someone incredibly special, my child. And I wanted everyone here, including family, to see just how loved and supported they are." My relatives shifted uneasily, realizing the subtle shift in tone. I continued. "I know sometimes priorities are misplaced, And I've learned over the years that it's easy to underestimate someone quietly working behind the scenes. But today, everything is visible. The effort, the love, and the joy my child inspires, those things can't be ignored. I gestured toward the carefully prepared gifts, the personalized notes, the small but meaningful surprises, and then introduced a few of the neighbors and community members whose admiration for my child was palpable. Their eyes widened as the realization hit. I had orchestrated an event that showcased resourcefulness, love, and respect in ways they had never imagined. My child beamed at the center of it all, eyes sparkling, unaware of the deeper satisfaction brewing in my heart. I felt a surge of empowerment as my family's expressions changed: disbelief, guilt, and finally, humbled acknowledgement. A cousin whispered, "I didn't realize," and my mother's lips pressed into a thin line, avoiding eye contact. I smiled faintly, the calm on my face masking the thrill of vindication. "It's okay," I said softly, almost conversationally. "Now you've seen it for yourselves." The weight of years of neglect and favoritism hung in the air, and yet it was transformed into a quiet lesson they could not erase. My child hugged me tightly, unaware of the drama unfolding around them, and I held back tears of pride, realizing that the true victory wasn't humiliation. It was proving that love, dedication, and quiet strength always speak louder than neglect. Watching the family absorb the subtle but undeniable power reversal, I felt a cathartic release. The injustice had been addressed, the underestimation corrected, and the day had been reclaimed. Every sneer, every dismissive glance they had ever thrown my way had been countered not with anger, but with thoughtful planning, patience, and the kind of quiet authority they could not argue against. The room hummed with energy, a mix of celebration and reflection, and I finally allowed myself to savor the satisfaction of a plan executed perfectly. Today was more than a birthday. It was a lesson, a revelation, and a vindication all in one. And the joy radiating from my child made every slight, every forgotten milestone, every dismissed effort worth it. Later that evening, after the last guest had left and the room settled into quiet, I sat with my child on the couch, watching them play with the leftover gifts and decorations. A wave of calm washed over me, mingled with pride and relief. Today had been more than a birthday. It had been a demonstration of what love, patience, and determination could achieve when met with neglect. I thought about my family, their subtle arrogance, and the countless times I had been overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed. Part of me wished they had truly seen the depth of what I had created, but another part understood that their partial awareness didn't diminish the victory I felt. I had reclaimed my sense of self, shown my child what it meant to be valued, and proved to myself that I could rise above favoritism and indifference without losing my integrity. There was a quiet joy in knowing that I had transformed frustration into action, pain into empowerment, and neglect into celebration. Even if my family left still unaware of the full impact, I had grown stronger, more confident, and deeply proud of the day I had created. My child's laughter filled the room, a living testament to the triumph of love over neglect. And in that reflection, I realized that true justice isn't always public or explosive. It's found in the quiet victories, the inner strength, and the knowledge that you refuse to let anyone diminish your worth or the happiness of those you love. As I watched my child tearing open the last gift, their eyes sparkled with pure delight, and my heart swelled in a way words could never capture. "This is the best birthday ever!" they exclaimed, hugging me tightly, their little arms wrapped around me as if they could squeeze every ounce of love into that single moment. I laughed, holding them close, feeling the weight of all the years of neglect and disappointment dissolve into this one shining instance of joy. Their gratitude was simple, genuine, and unfiltered, a stark contrast to the cold, dismissive behaviour I had endured from my own family. "Thank you for doing this, Mom," they whispered, their voice full of awe. At that moment, I realised that every effort, every ounce of planning, and every quiet act of determination had been worth it. Their happiness was not just a reflection of the day's celebration, but a testament to the love, care, and attention that had been missing for so long. Watching them laugh, run, and delight in the smallest surprises, I felt a deep, validating pride, knowing that I had created a memory they would carry with them forever, and that our bond had been strengthened in ways my family could never undo. In the days that followed, I began noticing the subtle shifts in my family's behaviour. Comments that were once casual or dismissive now carried a cautious tone, as if they were treading carefully around a realization that had begun to settle in. A cousin who had once laughed at my modest accomplishments now asked for advice, clearly aware of the effort and thought I had poured into the birthday. Even my mother's texts were measured, tentative, lacking the casual arrogance that had marked her previous interactions. I didn't need grand apologies or overt recognition. The quiet discomfort, the glimpses of acknowledgement were enough. The party had left its mark, not in public scandal, but in a subtle, undeniable awareness that they had underestimated me and the love I devoted to my child. Every conversation, every hesitant compliment, reminded me that their neglect had consequences. And while they might not fully grasp the depth of their oversight, the ripple of justice was already unfolding. I felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that the lesson had landed, and that the quiet power I wielded, through care, preparation, and unwavering love, was something they could neither ignore nor undo. Sitting quietly that evening, with the house finally still and my child asleep beside me, I reflected on the day and everything it had revealed. I realized that true strength isn't about confrontation or making others feel small. It's about quietly claiming your worth, showing up fully for those you love, and letting your actions speak louder than neglect or dismissiveness ever could. Life will always test you with people who underestimate, ignore, or betray you. But those moments are opportunities to rise, to prove not to them, but to yourself that you are capable, resourceful, and resilient. I thought about my child's laughter, their joy, and the pride that filled me. It was validation more powerful than any approval my family could offer. If there's one thing I've learned, it's that being calm, deliberate, and intentional in your responses transforms hurt into empowerment and neglect into opportunity. For anyone watching who has ever been overlooked or dismissed, remember, your strength, your love, and your perseverance create a legacy that cannot be ignored. And sometimes, the quietest victories, the ones built with care, patience, and unwavering heart, are the ones that resonate the loudest.